Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 4, Episode 20, aka Episode 151. I am your host, Alejandro, and with me, no one, as we start the new era of the show where you will not see my podcast co host Paul for the foreseeable future as he embarks on his journey into parenthood as his baby just was literally born this week, thankfully, and the baby is healthy. They're home now, like he's taking care of the baby now, so now he gets to enjoy the new era of being a daddy. But yeah, in the meantime, I still hold the fort, and you'll still keep getting episodes every week, either just me solo or sometimes with a guest. No guest this week. The guest kind of fell through, and I hope to bring in more people, at least for the next few weeks, especially with such an exciting time now as we're moving into how can I say this, showcase season, because it's literally SGF is literally around the corner, and we may be getting a PlayStation showcase maybe next week. Who knows? Rumors keep saying that the Xbox showcase is coming soon, so we'll have more news on new game announcements pretty soon. So, but in the meantime, we gotta make do with what we have, and this is just a reminder that this is the X Bottom Podcast, our gaming podcast that posts every Thursdays from 10 a.m. onwards, God willing. Available on the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/escapegaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. And just as a little, kind of a little housekeeping, I'm recording this episode late, but this is gonna go live right on schedule, where I basically guested over at a special episode of the Xbox expansion XCP from like one of Season Gaming's members. His name is Luke. They did like a special episode where they wanted to talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and you all know that game is like a part of my personality now, so they asked me if I wanted to be in that show, and I got to join in. So that's my second spoiler cast that I've done with that game, other than the one we did on episode 14 of this season for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So if you want to hear me talk more about that game, yeah, I'll keep you posted whenever that episode goes live. But and then yeah, you can go read my recent review for Stellar Blade over at seasongaming.com, which went live last week, and I think I forgot to put it in the description. So that's been live. So and I will be reviewing Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, which is coming out literally the day this episode goes live. So I have played that game before, so I have some experience and knowledge of it. So let's see how fast that goes and how fast I put a review for it. So but today you probably already read the title for this episode, and it's Hellblade 2 review, because Hellblade 2 came out yesterday and I finished it this morning, and it took me like around 6 hours, so I figured it was time for me to give my full thoughts on this. Ains, my EIC over at seasongaming.com, he did the official review for the site for that game. He gave it a 9 out of 10, so you can go read his review and what he thought of that. But if you wanted to hear my thoughts, I already put a tweet about some of my raw initial emotions about that game. But just to kind of give a little context, I enjoyed the first Hellblade quite a lot. I respected it quite a bit for how Ninja Theory really pushed for the idea of trying to do a game that looked like that game did, but being done on like a small budget. And because it was done with a smaller budget, that they could be able to tackle a more taboo, more serious subject matter, which is mental health psychosis, because it's like that's a very heavy subject matter that I obviously, like, when they decided to do that game, that's not something that a big publisher will want to like tackle, because it's like not something that it's quite appealing having to deal with something as serious as that. And the way they portrayed the psychosis of the main character Senua and Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice was like a pretty ingenious way of like mixing the mental struggles of someone that constantly has like a million voices in their head, and how like her struggles were kind of like being mirrored with some with their own version of like the Norse mythology, to kind of like represent the different moods that one goes through, like something as serious as that, and that becoming like a literal personification of her struggles, and how it was like a story about really coming to terms with her own problems and letting go. And I found it like really really effective and really touching, especially it's such a unique game in the indie space at the time, and for it to look like that. And that's one kind of like one of the reasons that put Ninja Theory on Microsoft's crosshairs, and that's why they bought it like literally a year after that game came out, because they were in need of studios. And Ninja Theory's pedigree kind of like shone really bright in that game. Obviously, that game is not perfect. That game, I felt, had a puzzle problem. It was like obviously that game had combat. It was like a one-on-one combat that sometimes you get surrounded by mobs, and you had your heavy and your heavy and like quick attacks, and a kick and like a parry move and like a sprint. They can kind of like mix and match as you were kind of like struggling with some of those tanky enemies that could attack you from all angles. But it looked well. It played well enough. It wasn't super strong of a combat system, especially for a developer like Ninja Theory, who previously worked on games like Heavenly Sword and DMC Devil May Cry, two games that I think their combat held up really well. And obviously there's Enslaved. I don't think that I actually have not played Enslaved other than like a demo. I have it. I still need to get through it. But Enslaved was also a game that was like a good showcase of the studio's kind of like cinematic qualities that they had. And I feel Hellblade is probably was at the time like their most impressive effort, considering that with a less than $10 million budget, they used all these like different techniques to really portray the story. I felt it was one of the best uses of like in-game graphics mixed with like sort of FMVs kind of like mixed together, and you could see like they were trying to make the most out of every tool that they had in the book, and that made that game so compelling and like so impressive as kind of like an indie effort. But then obviously when they got acquired in 2018 and 2019, they announced Hellblade 2 Senua Saga, which is actually Senua Saga Hellblade 2, how it's in the title. And it was announced literally at the same time the Xbox Series X got announced at the Game Awards 2019. A long time ago. That was like the first next gen console announced. That was still pre-pandemic. The pandemic was still something that was just only in China, and none of us knew that what was about to happen to us. And just a few months later, and now that we're so knee deep into this generation of consoles. But yeah, Hellblade 2 was like really parroted. Like the fact that they announced it with such a visually striking trailer at the Game Awards next to this console made it clear, at least initially made it clear, that Microsoft like considered this like a huge pillar that they wanted to push. And considering the kinds of games that they don't make are the kinds of games that Ninja Theory can make, which is very similar to what their rival Sony does, it was like at first I was like, okay, they're doing a sequel to Hellblade, which is interesting, because like I didn't think it quite at the time, even though like I recently replayed it kind of like in the lead up to Hellblade 2. At the time I didn't remember it setting up a sequel, even though it kind of does, but it set it up more like an open-ended thing that you didn't really need to follow it up, because kind of like the central conflict of Senua's inner struggles was kind of like resolved in that game. So I didn't really know like what they could do afterwards, at least thematically, that could like continue that through line. But I was still interested of the fact that Microsoft was willing to fund the sequel, and the fact that they were parroting it like they were, it looked like it did, especially when they showcased it on the Game Awards 2021 gameplay reveal, and a few other times that game has shown up, like in 2023 when they also showed another cutscene at the showcase, which is when they gave the year for a release for that game. That was like at that point I was like, I need this game to be like a win for them, because it's like it's the kind of game that a lot of like naysayers that only care about this kind of game is like the only thing that's worth quality, even though that's complete BS for me. I prefer my gaming to be like very varied, and the quality is not just defined by something that tries to emulate Hollywood. This was still a game that I was like really actively rooting for them to really nail, especially because at the time it felt like oh man, it will be very interesting to see like what Ninja Theory can do with all this budget that they've been given. Like how much are they gonna expand this game? Obviously they're not showing it. They've showed quite a bit, but it's like obviously the game's gonna be really big. It's gonna be really expensive. At least that was the thought until the developer direct for this year, where they showcase it quote unquote a little bit more. They showed a little bit more of stuff, but during that developer direct, immediately afterwards it was kind of like revealed that the size of the game was going to be very similar to the size of the first game. It was going to be a $50 game instead of a $70 game. Obviously if you're on Game Pass, that's like that doesn't have a bearing for you if you're a Game Pass subscriber. But them mentioning the scope of the title and the price of the title really very late recalibrated the expectations of what we're gonna get about this game, which is like they took a long time, but they basically decided to make another sequel to Hellblade that was gonna be exactly like Hellblade, and that inherently is not a problem. It's only a problem it's only a problem if you think about the way it was initially marketed and the fact that Microsoft waited until this year to make it clear what kind of game it was going to be. A lot of people really flew with the narratives as if it was going to be Xbox's answer to God of War. This was going to be Xbox's answer to The Last of Us. A lot of people were parroting that Ninja Theory had all it takes to become Xbox's version of Naughty Dog, because this is the studio that's pursuing that kind of cinematic game. And really bad move of Microsoft waiting too long to really say what the game was supposed to be, because then after they revealed that, then they didn't market this game pretty much at all. And there was also there was almost this worry that the things that they had already shown were like, man, when we were thinking we're only seeing like tiny glimpses of the game, we are now like, we probably have seen a lot of the game now. And that's kind of worrying. And now that the game has come out and now I have beaten it, I beat it in 6 hours. I played it for 4 hours straight yesterday and I finished it for the next 2 hours. I am sad to report that Hellblade 2 is not this amazing game that I was hoping it was going to be. It's still a really good game. It's for people that have been wanting a showpiece for the Xbox Series X, like after all that talk about how much teraflops it has versus the PlayStation 5 and how like Microsoft always pursuing the power narrative when it comes to their consoles, even though they also released a half powerful console at the same time with the Series S, is like the Xbox has not had a visually striking like showpiece title so far, at least from their exclusives. There has been like beautiful stuff that has come out. I actually think a game like Alan Wake 2, it's a great showcase for not just the Xbox but also the PS5, but that's also that's a multi-platform game. They have not had the exclusive showpiece that you can like show someone, be like, hey, you want to see like what this console is capable of, and this is like exactly what this game is. Like, it's an amazing showcase for Unreal Engine 5, and literally when it comes to photorealism in games and fidelity and like the fidelity detailing, character modeling, animation, environmental details and all that, like Hellblade 2, it's a visual and oral masterpiece. Like, it is a game that at least from its presentation I was left like mouth agape like a lot about how just beautiful a lot of this game is. Like how much like the first game was also pretty beautiful for like the kind of game it was, but with all the unlimited resources they had, they literally spent all this year since Hellblade 1 shipped, and also when Bleeding Edge, that like multiplayer game that launched randomly in 2020 that they did kind of like just was kind of pooped out. But like all this time, like the 80 developers, because this game had like 80 credited developers to it, they really got all the money that Microsoft gave them and spent it to make this like a presentational like gut punch, because it's like, it's just super impressive. This is like graphics are never gonna be the thing that to me defines like if a game is great or not. To me, it's like graphics will always be the glazing like of a great game. Like if a game is great, if it looks beautiful and all that, that's kind of like the cherry on top. This is nothing. It's not something that I look for games, but this is definitely one of those games that I feel is absolutely carried by how beautiful it is, because unfortunately as a game, somehow Hellblade 2 is the kind of visual showpiece that's all about the visuals that you would get at the beginning of a console generation, but it somehow has showed up like 4 years late. And it definitely gives me a lot of the Order 1886 / Rise Son of Rome energy, in that definitely too much money and too much effort was put into the visual cinematic style of things, that I feel the underlying game has also suffered, especially for a game that already was kind of limited in gameplay. I'm pretty shocked at how much more shallow the gameplay experience ended up being for Hellblade 2. Like, obviously there are things that return for the game, like combat is still kind of like, it still like tries to push one-on-one combat. There are some perspective puzzles, and I will definitely say I was pretty stunned at how much worse the combat is in this game compared to the first one, because it's a game that is emphasized emphasize the visuals of the combat more than the actual gameplay mechanics of the combat. It feels way more sluggish than the first game. There's less options for combat than the first game. Like in the first game, you even had a kick. There's no way to kick enemies in this game. The sprint that you could like use to modify some attacks becomes like wildly inconsistent unless you do the focus move on the right or on the right or left trigger. And even though there's sometimes multiple enemies at once, it's definitely like this game really contorts itself for always to be like a one-on-one fight with an enemy that the previous game wasn't. Like you would lock on into one enemy in the previous game, but you would sometimes be attacked from behind by someone else, and the game, like the voices in your head that you would use in the microphone would be like especially by the way, this is a game that you have to play with headphones, people. It's like it enhances experience like tenfold. But back to the point, you could get like attack from every angle, and so for some people that was frustrating, but that also kept you in your toes, especially because that first game kind of like dangled the carrot that there was like a permadeath option, like there was a permadeath built into the narrative that also made you really nervous of not getting killed during the combat. That it's no longer emphasized here, and I feel the game loses a little bit of its edge for not having that, on top of just being like one-on-one combat. So combat feels like a step back. There's way less of it also. So the few times that you get to engage in combat, you're just like don't be surprised if it just feels like you're playing like a quick time event cutscene, because of the way this game so beautifully seamlessly transitions from like from cutscene to combat in a way that's like pretty remarkable, but great for presentation, but hurts the game. And then there's the puzzle side element. Obviously there's still a few perspective puzzles that call back to the many perspective puzzles you did in the original game. I would say that while the perspective puzzles in the first game were overused, at the very least in this one they are like used more sparingly, and the few times you do them, the environments are a little bit more distinct, that it's not as annoying trying to find those different perspectives, but it also risks crossing a line into being like puzzles that just sold themselves for you, that it could make you question why even add them down if they're gonna be this easy. But they're not. I always found those, especially the over reliance in the later half of Hellblade 1, like too overbearing, that I don't mind that there's less of them. There's a few more that they've added. There's like a perspective puzzle that kind of shifts the environment around you, that it's definitely kind of like an SSD flex that to me it's not as impressive, coming from this game coming sometime after Alan Wake 2 just recently came out, that also did a lot with like SSD instant load show environment like manipulation. If I kind of feel like if this game had come out like a year or two within the console's lifespan, that this kind of puzzle would be like something more impressive. But to me, it's like it felt like a victim of circumstance. So then that's pretty much all the gameplay. Then a lot of this game really feels like a very elaborate walking simulator in a way that the first game was, but didn't quite feel like that, because this game also lets itself be interrupted so much on look how cinematic we are. You're taking a few steps, let us take the camera control away from you, as you see kind of like the camera perspective as it kind of slowly shifts, and it's like it seamlessly transitions from cutscene to gameplay in a way that feels a little too overbearing and a little too fart smelly, that I know a lot of people that take a lot of issues with this kind of games will definitely find this one even more overbearing. If you thought like starting the game just like in a slow boat in the first one was like a slow start, wait until you play the first hour of this game and this like desolate beach, which is like it really takes control away from you a lot in that way. But probably the thing that the saddest thing for me about Hellblade 2 coming from like the first game is it's such a beautiful game. The acting is so great. The performance capture is like so immaculate. I hate that the story failed to resonate with me. It's like by removing kind of like the inward abstraction of you being Senua, kind of like trapped in her own mind, and the kind of like the voices and some illusions kind of like filling up the interactions because she's just kind of trapped in her psychosis. By adding more NPC characters into this game, like two like other characters that are kind of part of the story, and like adding more of a grander quote unquote plot about like stopping a slave trade from being given to like the giants of Norse mythology. I feel it kind of models the message a little bit, and it kind of like the inner struggle that made Senua's character so interesting in the first game kind of like gets lost a little bit, and like not really understanding like what the point is of her trying to save this save this labors other than maybe some vague references that the loss that she suffered at the first game that sent her into her psychosis was kind of like product of these things happening. So that's kind of like the only thing that I would have to like replay it again just to see if that's exactly what it was telling. But it's like you just get, especially when you're trying to tell a story and the voices that are constantly in her head are constantly also pestering you. It's something that's very hard to really nail in like what the point of it all is. And I just also don't feel like this game handled the mental health problems of Senua as effectively as that first game. Like I found the first game, especially when she was having breakthrough moments, for really touching, and in this one, they didn't hit as much. And something mentioned right at the end in regards to like coming to terms with the mental health or some of the reasoning behind it, like really rubbed me the wrong way. And as someone that really advocates for like mental health and kind of like and kind of like a self-discovery process, that I would really have to like really play that again, because like I had like a viscerally raw reaction, like anger when I saw when I felt that was kind of like the takeaway that they were kind of portraying in that game. And the game also kind of just suddenly stops in a way that also doesn't feel really satisfying, that it would be really sucky if this is like the last Hellblade game, because it's like it's not it feels very inconclusive. And also I feel like a third game would also continually muddy the waters, because this kind of story and this kind of subject matter is not one that treats itself well to kind of like a grand trilogy treatment, I would say. So it's like that really bummed me out, because it's like there's some specific moments in the middle to late game when you're dealing with giants that this game really comes together in a really spectacular way in visuals and sound and music and story. And those moments gave me such highs that I feel are some of my favorite moments of this year. But like the overall story feels like it's been like dragged down and muddied in a way that it just didn't leave the same impact as the first game. And because it didn't leave that, now the only way that I see Hellblade 2 is this was only done just because Microsoft really saw the technical chops of Ninja Theory, and because they had already said what they needed to say in such a beautiful way with the mental health stuff. By them making a sequel, because it was gonna be like a known quantity, it was like just trying to push already the fidelity of like the storytelling of what they were doing, and they definitely did that. They definitely gave Ninja Theory a lot of money for it to look really pretty, but at the same time, it's like I just wish they really had something more to say about like mental health or how that was portrayed, and I just wish it hadn't been given like a broader representation, because I feel like it just didn't resonate with me in a way that I was hoping and praying it was going to, because I really like the things that I really like about that first game. That was something that I wish was doubled down here, and the way it was doubled down was kind of like repeating some of the same things, but on a grander scale that just muddied the water. So that's like pretty unfortunate. But I also feel like the beauty of this game makes it worth seeing, especially if you're on Game Pass. If you have a Series X or a really good PC, I'd say it's worth the trudge, even if some of its gameplay is like leaves a little bit to be desired. But there's really certain, it's really, and if you're one of those like my buddy Sebastian that absolutely loves graphical fidelity to the point that that's always the first thing he talks about in games, this is one of those games that I'm like, you have to see what they've done, because I do feel that Ninja Theory has set up a great benchmark for what Unreal Engine 5 can do, to the point that within the Xbox ecosystem, I'm very hopeful for great things when it comes to the next Gears game, because Gears of War and Unreal Engine has always been like peanut butter and jelly when it comes to a game that utilizes that engine like to its fullest. And I feel that with the power of the Series X and some of the things that they showed with the Hivebusters DLC that they released for Gears 5, this is gonna definitely be the next big looker for the console, for people that really want like a graphical showpiece. Obviously that's not me. I don't mind the graphical showpiece. I love the graphical showpiece when it's in a game I love also. So, and I feel at least Hellblade really does that, and I have to give Ninja Theory the props for that. And I hope that at least when it comes to like performance, like actual like performance, acting, and artistic and graphical merits. I hope they win a lot of awards by the end of the year. Just kind of like the first game did. Because I feel that they really pushed the envelope in that area, even though the rest of the game didn't kind of follow suit. And who knows? I was talking with my EIC Ains, who it's actually like if things line up, he might be the guest for the show for the next week. He said he had wanted to be in the show for a while, so we may make that happen next week. This story really resonated with him. I was talking to him like how he personally really liked the grander scope and how like Senua fit into the scale. It just didn't quite work for me the same way because the intimacy of that first game is what made it special. Making it grander didn't make it as special for me, and also the fact that the gameplay took a step back in the combat section really bummed me out. And I appreciated the puzzles being toned down a little bit more, but they didn't quite add more to the game by toning down. That it makes it like a. I'm still shocked that I beat it in 6 hours. I wasn't even trying to rush beat it. I literally immersed myself in it. I shut my lights off. I put my headset in. I was like taking a billion screenshots. I had to send like all the screenshots that I took of this game because it's really a beautiful looking game, and I just really wish I came out of this really loving it. This was one of my most anticipated games of this year. I don't know if you would qualify in like a most disappointing category for me, like by the end of whenever we do like awards next year, because I feel there's still a really good game here that at least I think, depending on how the rest of this year goes, either really sneaks in at the very bottom of like a potential top 10 or makes it as an honorable mention. Because the parts I really liked about this game, I really liked. I just wish the story really resonated. And what I do find interesting is that at least for people that care about like review scores, this game scored the exact same way as the first Hellblade. The first Hellblade scored an 81 overall, like after all the reviews were tabulated back in 2017, and that was seen as a big win for Ninja Theory's first independent production. And now getting an 81 as a first party feels different, feels kind of wrong, and it feels kind of wrong in the way that I understand why a lot of people like would be like petrified at a big name studio exclusive from Xbox only scoring an 81, even though like what's funny is that they made a game that's similar in vibes as the first game. That is like, what else were you expecting for a game, a sequel to Hellblade? It's exactly that. So it's like, that's what's so funny. It's like it hitting an 81. I'm not surprised because it's like an 81. Those low 80s tend to kind of be like that middle spot after you see a lot of people throwing a lot of praise in the reviews, and then there's a lot of people that tend to trash it. So it's kind of like all combulates itself kind of like in the middle. But I'm of two minds about it, because it's like this was still just an 80-person team making a game that looked as beautiful as it did, and took a swing at continuing a topic that is usually taboo. And even though it was not as successful at it, they really did make a prettier game. If you go over at my Twitter/X, because now it's just x.com, thanks Elon Musk, in my initial raw reaction of finishing the game, I said that this was like a 7 out of 10. The more I've been thinking about ever since I throwing that 7 out of 10, I think it's more of a 7.5, and I could make an argument for an 8 if I really wanted to, depending on the mood. But I do feel that 81 does feel right for this game. It's like because it's like it's not meant to be a crowd pleaser. This is not meant to be a game that's like plastered all over the internet as like this like mainstream must-see thing, because like the subject matter it deals is just not gonna be to everyone's liking. So it gets the job done in that way. But I also understand the disappointment of another big name Xbox game that was supposed to be like a headliner just landing at an 81, even though it's the exact same score as the first game, and that was celebrated for that first game. But I would definitely say if this sequel looking like this came out from Ninja Theory as both a multi-platform and not as an exclusive, I absolutely would see like a different, and just a similar championing to this game as there was at the first game. It being a first party, absolutely, I can definitely see how a lot of people would try to construe different things that maybe are a little bit unfair. And I would definitely say that if there's anyone that I should blame for that, it's definitely Microsoft. From the very first time that they announced this game back in 2019, they should have made it clear that yes, we bought Ninja Theory, but they're gonna make a game at the exact same length, at the exact same scope as the first game. And the thing is that it's even shorter, I would say. I thought I spent more time playing Hellblade 1 than I did this one. But because they didn't set that expectation. The thing is that maybe they thought they were gonna get a bigger game than they got, and then like and Ninja Theory just surprised me like, no, what we did was just make a game a similar scale as the first one, and we just used all your money to make it as pretty as possible. And not setting the expectation right at the right time, I feel, because the things that they did try, I mean, they said that on when they revealed the date for this game at the developer direct, that was around the time that they were trying to set the expectation, and to me it's like, that's 5 years too late to set that expectation. You let the narrative kind of like get away from you, and the fact that then like the marketing for the game really like slowed down to a crawl after that, it was like, this game was just not given the proper room to breathe for it to feel like a big deal, even though the subject matter makes it feel like it shouldn't be a big deal. But because it's a first party, it should. It's like this game is weirdly caught in the middle, and I feel kind of bad for them, because it's like, I really want to give them props in the things that they really pushed, because it's like, I tell you, people, it's like, it's rare for me to gush about visuals like I do with this one. I think it's legit the best looking game I've seen this entire console generation. And there is a new game plus that supposedly can recontextualize the story through different voices that you can pick that unlock. So I definitely want to see like what that does for that story. Ains told me like it recontextualizes in a really cool way, so I'm like, okay, I definitely want to see that before I get to record with him next week. But yes, I have just such strange mixed feelings about Hellblade 2, and that to me is like I just hate feeling mixed about Xbox games, because I just wish, besides just Hi-Fi Rush that I absolutely adored the moment that game came out, that every time that we talk about Xbox, it's not just this constant caveating. Because right now, obviously, there's a lot of idiots in the internet that are once again like declaring, oh, once again the Xbox tax, which is like probably one of the stupidest conspiracy theories I ever heard. Because and just like inhaling I always see it as inhaling copium to try to justify games that may not be as strong as they should, and just trying and just excuse making. And my thing with Hellblade 2 is that I like it less than the first game. So it's like it getting an 81, I'm not surprised where they get there. And also the first game was like, a lot of people really loved the subject matter, a lot of people didn't buy with it. It's just that kind of game. So it's like I personally see after finishing where that 81 lands. It makes it so frustrating that once again I'm starting to see I'm starting to see a lot of people just try to like parrot conspiracy theories once again, when that's not the truth. Like kind of like a lot of people were trying to pull the Xbox tax on Starfield, and then finally a lot of people really realized that that game was just missing so much compared to like what Bethesda has done before. And now like with the recent patch that came out on May 15, that thing has finally that was literally last week, god damn it. That was literally last week. I played it briefly and I was like, wow, it feels good to play this game at 60 frames on the Xbox, because that was not at launch. I enjoyed it fine at 30 on the Series S, but it definitely is nice that it's finally there in the Xbox Series X. It's good that there's maps now in most of the cities. It's like, I wish a lot of the stuff was just in the game at launch. So it's like there is there's just something about kind of like the Xbox fan base just always trying to justify stuff instead of kind of like taking to task. And I just wish they were a little bit more realistic and I'd really analyze stuff. And like in Hellblade, it landing at an 81, I feel like I'm fully on board with that, where that score landed, especially with me initially scoring it lower personally. So it's like I see where those reviews came from. It's just not that kind of crowd pleasing game. So there's no conspiracy theory. There just isn't. That's just what it is sometimes. So yeah, overall, like, do I recommend Hellblade 2? I do. Like, especially it's so short that I feel like it's that kind of art piece that I feel like it's gonna resonate for people the way that it won't for others. That just kind of like I was talking with Ains, like the story of 2 did resonate with him. It didn't for me. So it's like you will never know like where you will end there. So just know that to me, I preferred the first game, but it's still worth seeing. It's still, especially for the craft and display. So. Now, moving on from what I've been playing, it's time to talk about a few news headlines for now. So press X for some news. So, talking about the first headline for this past week, Xbox's Activision opens new studio to develop narrative-based AAA franchise. So, this was an interesting timing for this news to come out because this is a new studio based over in Warsaw, Poland called Elsewhere that was open literally the week after the disaster that was Microsoft closing four first-party studios, two of which were big names like Arcane Austin that did Prey and Redfall. And I also learned recently, I misled Paul about this because I was stupid that I didn't realize that Arcane Austin is also the developers of the original Dishonored. Dishonored 2 and Deathloop were made in Leon, the studio that opened afterwards. But then obviously Tango Gameworks, them giving Xbox their biggest critical win in probably 10 years, but they ended up closing them. And so it's like when that closed and then the studio was open, even though it's Activision, the optics were just not good because it's like, gosh, it's like, so you close that, but then you have enough money to then open this other team. Is like I know it's like completely separate entity, especially how as they're still integrating Activision into like the entire Microsoft ecosystem, the same way that they're still kind of integrating Bethesda. That's taken quite a while because they're big publishers. What they're saying about this studio though, like removing kind of like the bad optics about what they're like what is or isn't about what Xbox has, like this new studio saying that they're gonna do like a new IP that's not Call of Duty. That to me is personally really exciting because one of always the good things that I was excited about the possibility of Xbox acquiring Activision was for the idea that it would remove Activision from like the constant churn of Call of Duty, because it's like since Activision was answering to their own shareholders, they always had to like pump the Call of Duty machine because that was always the biggest moneymaker, which made that publisher so boring that then like eventually they would only give us false hopes by releasing like a Crash 4 or the remake of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 before then being like, okay, we gave you that, not anymore, back to Call of Duty, the Call of Duty grind. And that to me is just so that is just so creatively bankrupt, but it always made money. So it was like, yeah, it is what it is. But it's like when all the closures were happening over at Xbox and all these new edicts of what's been happening with Xbox this year, with the whole now that they have integrated Activision, it's like the Eye of Sauron is all over Xbox now, and they really want the brand to start making money because they spend so much on acquisitions, and the brand has been kind of going downwards, like in revenue and like in console sales. Like revenue has been like flattening and going down, and the only thing that was like revenue up was when they bought Activision. So it was like if it wasn't for that, everything would look worse in the earnings for Xbox. So then like the whole thing of them putting exclusives over competitor platforms to try to make more money, because a lot of the Xbox audience has been trained to not buy games because it's like they want you to subscribe for Game Pass. It's like it's put them in an interesting position that a lot of people have been like theorizing and declaring that Xbox buying Activision meant that Xbox is becoming Activision more than trying to make Activision more of itself. And it was those kind of moves, them like cutting off creative studios like Arcane and Tango, made it just made a bad optical thing that it's like, yeah, they're just gonna go for the big stuff now. That's pretty disappointing. That was not what a lot of people were pinning their hopes for that. But now like this new studio opening at Warsaw with developers from The Witcher, from The Last of Us, and like big name games, kind of tells you the kind of pedigree game that they are gonna try to make over there in Poland. They're probably gonna try to like poach people from CD Projekt Red and even the Techland that also work there in like Poland. And will we see this game soon? I highly doubt it, but just the idea that they're finally making a studio, and there's gonna be like an Activision branded studio that's just not a Call of Duty machine for now, is like, it's something that I'll remain cautiously optimistic for whenever they say anything, maybe in 3 or 4 years. But it will also be funny if then eventually they're just subsumed into the Call of Duty machine because it's like that the Call of Duty machine is just that big in that way. So yeah, let's see what happens. So now the next headline is Summer Game Fest to have more than 55 studios and publishers, including PlayStation, Xbox, and more. So some of the publishers that are supposed to be featured over at Keighley's showcase in the next 2 weeks, like in the next 2 weeks, yeah, 2 weeks. It's gonna be 2K, Amazon Games, Annapurna Interactive, Arc Games, Atari, Bandai Namco Entertainment, Blumhouse Games, Bokeh Game Studio, Capcom, Days of the Depths, Deep Silver, Devolver Digital, Discord, Dolby, Electronic Arts, Embark Studios, Epic Games, Focus Entertainment, Funcom, Hoyoverse, I Am 8-Bit, Indie Angels, Inner Sloth, Iron Mace, Yama Games, Level Infinite, of course, Magic the Gathering, Meta, NCSoft, NetEase Games, Netflix Games, Nexon, Niantic, PlayOn, PlayStation, Pocket Pair, Private Division, Racer, Recreate Games, Riot Games, S-Game, Samsung Gaming Hub, Season Games, Sega, SNK, Steam, Sunblink, Supercell, Thunderful Games, Teamy Studio Group, Tom Banner Studios, Ubisoft, Uncapped Games, WB Games, and Xbox. I think what's interesting about like this list of 55 studios is that Keighley announced it as like first round, so there may be more. There may be more studios that get announced the closer we get to that event. Obviously, as we were gearing to our Summer Game Fest last year, it was like we were all expecting a showdown between Summer Game Fest and E3, and then E3 just folded forever. So this time now, Summer Game Fest kind of like was being plastered as like the big game in town now for like the people that are still looking for that summer style E3 style showcase. And now it's good to hear all of these names. To me, like it's interesting hearing PlayStation will be here, because last year PlayStation showing up was just basically confirming the Spider-Man 2 release date, because they had showed it at their showcase only with a fall 2023 slogan, and then this game reappeared 2 weeks later at the showcase just to kind of solidify the date, which I was like, did they really hold it because the Keighley's show is just that much bigger and they just wanted to plaster it there? So with all these rumors that PlayStation is going to be doing a showcase maybe next week, because right now there's like the business meeting happening as I was recording of just Sony in general. Apparently there's going to be like another PlayStation business meeting next week. Last year around the time they did the PlayStation meeting, that's why around the time we got that showcase. So there's a lot of like rumors that that's kind of what's we're waiting for it to happen. So maybe if that showcase happens again before this thing, then PlayStation may announce something there that will have like a big date that then we'll get like a full reveal here over at Keighley stuff. And then Xbox being here, the showcase for them is, I think, because this showcase, Keighley showcase is on June 7th, which if I'm not mistaken, June 7th is a Friday. So, and I think last year's was a Wednesday. So this being a Friday, and then Xbox's showcase is usually on a Sunday morning. I do wonder what they announce here, like if Xbox is showing here, because it's like they have their showcase literally 2 days later. So with Xbox, I find it a little bit more interesting. There's like a 2K showing up here. This is something that I'm gonna like read a headline from further ahead, where they were said that they're trying to bring the next iteration of one of its biggest and most beloved franchises over at Summer Game Fest. There's a lot of like rumors that game may be BioShock, because there's been rumors that there's been a BioShock in like the Arctic Ocean game that has been in development for like freaking forever. Over at Last Stand Media, it kind of leaked some of those details, and maybe this is where they reveal it. It's like BioShock has been literally gone for 10 years, because Burial at Sea Episode 2 launched 10 years and 2 months ago to the day. So it's like other than the HD remasters of of the first two BioShocks and BioShock Infinite, is like the BioShock brand has just gone literally MIA for a new entry for like a generation and a half. So, and obviously a new BioShock will not be made by Ken Levine, the original creator of the original BioShock and BioShock Infinite, because he's currently working on Judas, which is a game that is also going to be published by 2K, and Jeff Keighley revealed at the Game Awards in 2022. And Jeff Keighley also recently did an interview with Ryan McCaffrey, or more like next to Ryan McCaffrey with Ken Levine about Judas. So maybe they'll show more about Judas at the showcase also, and maybe give it a full date, because the last time we saw Judas was at at the State of Play from February. The really good State of Play, I would say. And then Bandai Namco Entertainment, they usually show stuff here. Like, obviously, Elden Ring, the big trailer reveal of Elden Ring happened at a Summer Game Fest in 2021. I think a game like Sandland was also like featured there, and that's also a Bandai Namco joint. So maybe that's gonna be the thing that shows up here. Capcom, the last thing Capcom revealed at Achilles stuff was Monster Hunter Wilds at the last Game Awards. So maybe a follow-up to that. There's rumors that Resident Evil 9 is getting close to being revealed for a January 2025 release date. So there's also the possibility that once again that shows up at a PlayStation showcase, because Resident Evil always has shown up there. And maybe it's elaborated here, or this is the place where they're going to reveal it this time. We'll see. Electronic Arts showing up here. I don't even know what else they have other than probably Dragon Age. And I know Dragon Age has been revealed at Achilles show before. And also the Mass Effect, the Untitled Mass Effect 4 was also revealed at Achilles show. So maybe that also shows up there. Private Division showing up here. I find it really interesting because it's like Private Division just laid off a bunch of staff and closed a bunch of studios within the Private Division label of 2K. So I don't even know what could show up here. Sega showing up here. I believe this could be the place where they showed the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie trailer. And maybe a surprise game. Or they show up again with Metaphor Fantasio. We'll see. I know streamer Runeby would be very excited to see that Sonic the Hedgehog 3 trailer because she's such a Sonic simp. So, and Ubisoft showing up here. I know that Ubisoft is doing a Ubisoft Forward a few days after this. So that's also going to be like an interesting one. I think if I remember, Prince of Persia The Lost Crown was revealed first at Achilles show and then elaborated more at the Ubisoft Forward. So maybe that's kind of what they end up doing there. And then as for WB Games, maybe something about Suicide Squad. Who are we kidding? I'm just excited for showcase season to start again. I feel like we're finally running out of stuff to play at the right time. So I feel this is finally the time for us to fill out the calendar for at least the next calendar year. See what we'll be buying. So now moving on from that headline, where there's the next headline is EA Sports College Football 25 arrives in July. Cover athletes and editions revealed. So finally they finally gave a release date for finally NCAA football, who has been like long gone since the 360 era. The last time that we got an NCAA game from EA was in 2013, right before like the PS4 and the Xbox One were about to launch. And then there was something that happened with like licensing and kind of like the representation of athletes and stuff like that it prevented EA from continuing the NCAA football series, which ironically was always more beloved than their Madden series. It always had more TLC from like what I understand. And now it's finally coming back because they figured out how to portray the athletes for the thing to feel authentic, and it's coming back on July 19th. So it coming in July 19th. I was actually talking with Paul because I'll still chat with Paul even though he's no longer in the show currently until probably August, that I don't really play Madden. I haven't played Madden in like freaking forever, since probably the Xbox One era when I subscribed to EA Play just to kind of play games when I got my Xbox One. And this feels so momentous that I kind of want to see what EA does with this. That I think I'm going to check it out when it comes out on July 19th. Because it's really been gone that long. So super curious to see how that turns out. And because I know for a fact that the Madden games in the PS5 and Series X era have all been pretty bad. Because it's like the annualization has just not been sustainable for that franchise from what I understand. And they make the games more, and they're like, when before it was easy to make a new game of these like every year, it feels like EA is like struggling to keep up. And I really wonder if NCAA is gonna suffer for that, or if they're really gonna put extra love and care because they finally are bringing this back. So hoping for the best there. Now another headline. This one was an exciting one that I find it really funny because of funny timing, because I didn't put it in what we have been playing this week, because I wanted to give more of my focus for Hellblade 2 in that initial part of the show. But before Hellblade 2 came out, I went back to my Kingdom Hearts 2 replay playthrough, as I was like trying to beat Sephiroth in that fight, because that bastard's so hard. I tell you guys, it's like it's insane that Kingdom Hearts really, they had millennia style fights back in the day. They're just really that brutal. And I'm trying to make my way to see if I can beat Sephiroth. I've gotten closer and closer every time. So I find it funny that as I was playing that, I basically willed this headline into existence. The entire Kingdom Hearts saga comes to Steam next month. So Kingdom Hearts on PC has only been available through the Epic Game Store. And obviously there's been a lot of people that really absolutely abhorred the Epic Game Store. People just love Steam that much. And it was crazy that the Kingdom Hearts series was basically on PC, but just not on Steam. And now it's finally going to be there on Steam. So that's a Kingdom Hearts 1.5 plus 2.5 collection that came to PS4 in January 2017. And then the 2.8 collection that came out a little also in 2017. It also came out to PS4 in 2017. The 2.8 collection that includes the 0.2 Birth by Sleep Fragmentary Passage and Dream Drop Distance, and kind of like the Master of Keys movie, and then obviously Kingdom Hearts 3, which came out in 2019 with its DLC Remind on 2020. So one of the things that this is something that I've had chats with former EC Allies guy and now Last Stand Media host for Summon Science, Bradley Ellis. I usually interact with him in his Twitch chats. That the Kingdom Hearts series is probably one that Square has found a way to make so easily available for everyone, especially when the all-in-one package came out. That is like compared to other franchises, it's like these entries are just in these systems and these entries are in these other systems. Like Kingdom Hearts is like all together, and then like eventually when it came out on Xbox on like 2019, like the entire franchise is like, yeah, even the Xbox people can finally get in on the action of like the entire franchise. Even the game like Memory of Melody, which is like the rhythm game that's all about like the music, which is like way better than it has any credit, like that it has any credit to be, because it's like the Kingdom Hearts music slaps so hard that it can carry a relatively simple rhythm game. Which is funny that then it's like in classic Tetsuya Nomura fashion, the end of that game has like important story development that will factor into Kingdom Hearts 4 whenever that happens. And people are like reading a lot into the timing of this thing coming out on June 13th, and the fact that Jeff Keighley is having a showcase on June 7th, and how like he mentioned specifically round one of the developers that are going to be featured there, and the fact that Keighley specifically like replied on Twitter/X to the announcement that it was on Steam. So a lot of people are kind of reading that because he revealed the big Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer last year, that maybe Square Enix will want to maybe give a new update on Kingdom Hearts 4, because it's next on the docket for Square Enix now that Rebirth is out and we entered the long wait for the next part for that remake trilogy. And it's time, because it's like 2022 was when Kingdom Hearts 4 was revealed, so it's been 2 years since the last time we heard about that game. So and Tetsuya Nomura, since he's gonna direct part 3 of the remake project, because he stepped down from directing duties for Rebirth and gave it to Naoki Yamaguchi, but he said that he was coming back for the third part. Why that was happening was because he was directing Kingdom Hearts 4. I would assume that he will want to get Kingdom Hearts 4 out before he like fully recommits to completing the remake trilogy. So it feels like we're due time. It's like it's just been it usually takes 2 years before we get any update from Kingdom Hearts. If you all remember Kingdom Hearts 3, like the reveal happened in 2013 and we took until 2015 to see something else for the game, and then 2 years later we got something else. It always feels like a Kingdom Hearts info kind of comes every 2 years. It feels like if you look at patterns. So excited to see it. Like I really like Kingdom Hearts. Story can be really stupid, the writing horrible, but it's like it fills my soul with joy every time I play it. It's like there's a certain heart, there's a heart to that franchise that puts me in a good mood when I'm not feeling good. So next headline, Multiverses, the game that went and launched on early access in 2022 before WB like took it down despite like charging money for it. It's like relaunching literally next week, and the launch trailer revealed Jason Voorhees and the Matrix's Agent Smith. So he joins a cast of characters that include Bugs Bunny, Tom and Jerry, Arya Stark from Game of Thrones, Batman, Superman. Is like that is like such a fever dream of a roster, and I really hope that whatever they did to that game after they removed it from early access and now relaunching it now, I hope that like boosts that game up, because it's like at a time where Super Smash Brothers ended its run when they released Sora in 2021. It was like until we hear about the next Switch, it's like Smash Brothers has been like basically dormant. Like there's nothing new happening to that game. That game has been basically complete, and character-based fighting games on that style has been like I can totally like. I always saw the Multiverses had a potential to fill that niche, especially because I thought it played really solidly. Like I remember playing it with my brother when it came out in 2022. I was like, wow, this is way better than I was even expecting it from someone from like a random studio that randomly put out this game. And obviously they took it out because it's like they didn't have a good release cadence in early access when they were adding characters. I think they added Black Adam after the fact, and then it just kind of disappeared. The player base just cratered, and then WB was like, no, it's like we're taking it out because it's technically early access. This was a beta quote unquote period, even though we're charging you money. And then it's like the game's gonna come out in full force. And Joker was also announced, voiced by Mark Hamill, coming back for also Multiverses. I really hope that them taking it out was because they wanted to get into a cadence of how they were gonna keep like updating content for that game, because it's like that's the speculation of who's gonna be added is kind of what always kept the Smash community like alive all those times. So we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping for the best. A good thing is free to play. Another headline: Fallout is coming to Fortnite. Of course, like Fortnite will always have everything come to them. From what I saw from the trailer for like Fallout coming to Fortnite is the fact that you can buy the skin of like the big Brotherhood of Steel armor, which is always a cool looking armor, and it's cool to see that in the game. I think they added something in regards to nukes, maybe. I don't know. Like I haven't played Fortnite in a bit, but I'm more excited about other rumors that I didn't put in the headlines, that apparently Sora may also, from Kingdom Hearts, maybe also working into like a deal with Epic to kind of put him in the game, and that'll be so funny. Like we get the Sora character model with a gun, especially because there's amazing memes of Sora holding a gun. Like any Kingdom Hearts meme of the characters that holding a gun is probably the freaking funniest thing in planet Earth. So it's like them making that meme a reality would be like so delicious. Oh man. So that'll be interesting. But hey, Fallout's coming, so hey, apparently we can get Fallout everything except a new Fallout game. So. And then the final headline for this week's episode of the Xbox. Despite speculation, Microsoft will reportedly launch this year's Call of Duty and Xbox Game Pass. During episode 150, I think, when I was going on my rant over for what was happening at Xbox, that apparently that was like they were being debates if they were gonna be able to, if they were gonna put Call of Duty in Game Pass because like they needed to make money, and then putting Call of Duty in Game Pass could like miss them a lot of sales. That I was like, it seems wild. At the time I was like, it seems really wild to me that you literally went through this entire effort to acquire Activision Blizzard because you wanted to put those games on Game Pass, and then end up not doing it because like you eventually like finally realized that you overspent on this thing. But it's like apparently this came from like, I think it was from the Wall Street Journal, that they had heard from reputable sources that they're absolutely gonna launch Call of Duty on Game Pass. And I really hope that happens, because now that I have a Series X, and how disastrous Modern Warfare 3 went for me last year, that I was like, I don't think I ever want to buy this entire thing for $70 again. That is like, for at least for the sanity of me continuing playing quick Call of Duty campaigns every year. Like the Game Pass route to me will always seem like the right route. And also me like having like my great comeback of Call of Duty on Xbox, especially when people remember, is like Call of Duty became a big name in the 360 era. PS4 just kind of took the baton and just kept the momentum going. But it's like Call of Duty always was like a Xbox thing in my mind, especially from that Call of Duty 2 all the way to Black Ops 2 era. And then obviously like everything switched when the PS4 came out. And from Ghosts to Modern Warfare 3, all of those I played on PlayStation. And it's like I feel I just want, like, consider what Call of Duty is, I just want them on Game Pass personally. And someone really did put it, it's like, why this needs to happen is because they need to see like if actually putting a ginormous game on the service actually moves the needle. Game Pass growth has been stagnating. It's like they went from like always like praising, look how many Game Pass subscribers we've earning, to just like straight up not saying it because it kind of plateaued. And and especially with the Call of Duty franchise remaining cross generation for so long, like that series is still appearing over on PS4 for some reason, and already the Xbox One. It's like with the pandemic shortages and all that, the people are just Call of Duty bros. Like I tell you, people, it's like unless you're so ignorant about technical deficiencies, like you could really get away with still playing the modern Call of Duties on a last gen PlayStation or Xbox, because it's like so people just have already settled in, so they haven't felt the need to like upgrade. But if this new Call of Duty actually is the first one, I'd be surprised if it isn't. But if this next Call of Duty is just like next gen only, let's say, like let's play hypotheticals, they're supposed to showcase it at after the Xbox showcase on June 9th. I would love to see what if they're only in next gen and PC, this next entry, because eventually, like, if this is like Infinite Warfare, because like Infinite Warfare was the first one in the last generation where they finally ditched the old gen machines. Like Black Ops 3 was the final PS3 360 Call of Duty that launched on those systems. If this finally just launching next gen only and heavily promoted on Game Pass, can this move the needle? Can this like actually sell more systems? Can this increase subscribers? If even in that scenario that doesn't happen, then Game Pass as a service is just basically cooked. And like our Xbox scenario has basically cooked. Like their attempt at trying to pursue the subscription model and trying to grow that model is like, now they finally have the game where they could theoretically grow that model. And if it doesn't grow, then it's like that the subscription, the Netflix like subscription for game releases is just never gonna be like the only viable way forward for like game consumption. And Microsoft it will be an interesting time for Microsoft if that happens, especially with how entrenched Call of Duty has also become on PlayStation. That would be like the real test to be like, okay, this is next gen only, but now it's on the Game Pass. Would this move the needle? Could we actually get you to move over? Or potential new subscribers, could this convince you to actually get over here on the Xbox, especially since we have the Series S? And that could be like a really cheap way for you to get in. I'm excited for that scenario. I want to see if this is worth it for them. It's like such interesting times for that brand. And with that concludes this week's headlines. And now time to read you the releases for the week of May 26th to June 1st. So believe it or not, people, May is basically over. That's wild. So coming out on May 28th, we got Multiverses on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, and PC, basically re-releasing. So then we get Vampire the Masquerade Coteries of New York coming to iOS and Android on May 28th. We got Nine Souls coming to PC on May 29th. We got Aster Blade of the Monolith, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's like this was a really interesting indie game that was showcased at ID at Xbox thing recently, and it's coming to everything. It's coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC on May 30. I think this is Game Pass. I could be wrong. Usually everything that's shown over at ID at Xbox ends up coming to Game Pass, even if it's like a multi-platform thing. I would hope it is. I would like to try that. It looked really cool. Humanity, the game that came out on PS5 last year about like a dog that's from like the creators of Tetris Effect, coming to Xbox Series X and Xbox One on May 30. I know for sure that's a Game Pass thing that was in the promotion of like upcoming Game Pass stuff. F1 24, the Formula One game, entry for 2024 comes out on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, and PC on May 31st. And finally, Hypercharge Unboxed comes to Xbox Series X and Xbox One on May 31st. I would assume that's also a Game Pass game. So, nothing much for me here. I'm definitely curious to see what an entire almost an entire year of being shut down for Multiverse has done for that game. But right now, I'm just waiting for the final shape, which is my next big thing for June 4th. Unlike last year, I'm not going to be reviewing it over for Season Gaming. Steve's going to review it because they gave him a very early code for that on PC, but I'm definitely going to be playing that. I'm absolutely eager to see how Destiny wraps up its 10-year saga, especially in the eve of the final of Lightfall last year disappointing as it did. So And with the disappointment out of the way, I really hope that Bungie cooked here. Like, they've been like getting really good vibes since the final shape reveal, and Into the Light hit really well. Pantheon has been really good for what they've been doing. So it's like there's like good positive momentum going into Destiny that I thought was just never gonna be there because of how bad Lightfall went for them, and the fact that excitement was not re-energized when they showcased Final Shape back in August of last year. You can look at mine and Paul's reaction to that; were pretty muted. So really hopeful for that, because then for June, then it's like Shadow of the Earth Tree for Elden Ring. That's like later that in the 21st that month, so a month from now. The trailer that they show for the story is like, oh man, I can't wait to go back to Elden Ring. Oh man, it's gonna be. Let's see if I can get my muscle memory back for that one. But and then like eventually I'll get to Final Fantasy 14, which is the Dawn trailer is on July 2nd. So it's gonna be like a light year for releases, but I feel news are definitely gonna ramp up now that we're in showcase season, and we'll see how it goes. So, and with that, people, that concludes this week's episode of the Xbot on Post One, episode 150. And you can find me at _Drew Segovia on Twitter/X. You can find me at Alejandro Segovia 93 on Instagram/Threads. And then you can find my written content both at seasongaming.com and thecriticalcorner.com. And Season Gaming, you can find my current stuff, which is for this year is The Last of Us Part 2 Remaster Review, the Grand Blue Fantasy Relink Review, Skull and Bones, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Final Fantasy 16 The Rising Tide, TMNT, the TMNT arcade game, and Stellar Blade. Those are my current reviews that I've done for Season Gaming so far this year. Paper Mario may be next for me. Let's see if I finish it on time. We'll see what happens. I'm really excited for that one. I think it's already unlocked by the time I finish this recording. So excited to dive into that. And we'll see you next week. Hopefully my EIC Ains comes through. And y'all can meet him if you're not a Season Gaming Bitcast listener. So we're really excited to be able to like have a one-on-one chat with him that's not just texts. So but and until then, people, hopefully I had to tell you, like, if you're an Xbox player, play Hellblade. Like, go play Hellblade, see if you enjoy it more than I did, and play out. Try to catch up on your backlog of all the games that have come out so far in 2024. And the summer is already basically here. Hopefully, you're able to go touch some grass. And remember, press X to play. Hasta la vista, baby.